This is the one that we do often. A positive times a positive is positive. Now, I have a question for you. How many of you have seen using a dot for multiplication? Some of you? So when we multiply, when you first learn to multiply, what do they use for multiplication? An x. So the first time we learn to multiply, it's 2 times 3. Have you learned that that's 2 times 3? Yeah, that's the very first way you learn to multiply is with an x. Okay? There are other ways to show multiplication. 2 brackets. How many people have seen that? If I have 2 in a bracket and 3 in a bracket, that means 2 times 3. Awesome. Someone said a star. That they've seen multiplication like this. If you're ever typing something on a computer and you want to show multiplication, often people use the asterisk or the star for that. Any other multiplication? As you get into some higher math, sometimes they just use a dot in between them. So that's what I was trying to do here. But if you've never seen the dot for multiplication, that can be confusing. So those dots there, they mean multiply. So when I have a positive number times a positive number, that's equal to a positive number. If I have a positive number times a negative number, or a negative number times a positive number, that's going to equal a negative number. One positive and one negative multiplied together will give you a negative number. And finally, if you have a negative number times a negative number, you get a positive number. So we start to have a bunch of different ways that you could show multiplication. Now, the reason why in high school they start going away from the x for multiplying is because you start to learn some algebra stuff. And in algebra, they often have things called variables, which uses letters, and the letter x is used a lot. So one type of an algebra equation could look like this. 3 plus x equals 5. And you have to figure out what could that x be equal to make that true. And it's 2. And that's an example of an algebra equation. We're doing those kind of algebra equations in next semester. Okay? So first of all, we have to be able to realize that multiplication can look in a bunch of different ways. So this first example is multiplication. What I look at is I look at the numbers, and if I had 8 and 4 and I was multiplying them, what would I get? 32. Then I look at my positives and negatives. 8 is a positive number, and the 4 is a negative number. So will my answer be positive or negative? Negative. It'll be negative. No problem. Here's the next one for you to try. So see if you can multiply the numbers first and then decide, is it going to be a positive answer or a negative answer? It's going to be positive. 4 times 7 is? 28. So because it's a negative times a negative, it will be positive. What's 3 times 9? 27. And will this be positive or negative? Negative. Dividing works the same way. If you have a positive divided by a negative, or a negative divided by a positive, if one is positive and one is negative, your answer will be negative. If both are positive, your answer will be positive. And if both are negative, your answer will be negative. So first do the numbers. If you took 36 and divided it by 12, what would you get? 3. And would this answer be positive or negative? Negative. Awesome. If you had 63 and divided it by 9. Get 7. And is it positive or negative? Positive, because you have a negative and 2 negatives there, so it will be a positive. And that is the last one and where we're going to stop for today.